There's a kind of quiet performance most people never audition for but somehow perfect over time. The performance of being fine. You know the look. Steady eyes, practiced calm, a tone that says, "I've got it handled." It's convincing, almost graceful. But beneath that mask, the body often trembles with stories it was never allowed to tell. The mask is both armor and prison, crafted for survival, worn until it feels like skin. People learn early that stability earns safety. When you appear composed, others relax around you. You get invited back into the room. You stay employable, lovable, predictable. The mask buys belonging. Society rewards the one who seems in control, even if that control costs their aliveness. To show pain can feel like handing someone a weapon. To appear fine is to believe you're safe. But behind that belief, there's usually a shadow driver, fear of exposure. It's the kind of fear that doesn't always start in adulthood. It begins when a child's tears are labeled weakness, or when silence earns more love than honesty. The nervous system takes notes. Hide what hurts. Smile if you want to be kept. Years later, that same conditioning turns into a polished calm that hides chaos. Jung might call it an overfed persona, the social face that protects the fragile parts we learned were unacceptable. In many cultures, especially those steeped in stoic or male-coded ideals, emotional restraint is still treated as proof of maturity. Boys are praised for not crying, men for not needing help. The mask becomes a badge, passed from father to son, from one guarded generation to the next. But the reward of composure has a silent cost, the gradual exile of one's own truth. This quiet suppression isn't neutral. It's a kind of violence turned inward. Every "I'm fine" spoken through clenched teeth teaches the body that honesty is unsafe. Over time, the muscles tighten, the breath shortens. Sleep becomes negotiation. The self splits, one part performing calm, another whispering for release. If this feels uncomfortably familiar, stay with me. Midway through this film, we'll uncover the one psychological mechanism that keeps this mask glued long after reason says it should fall. But for now, just notice the image. A person smiling in a mirror, eyes carrying a story they've never told. Pretending to be fine may have saved you once. It made love predictable, work manageable, faith tidy. Yet every survival code eventually expires. The mask that kept you safe begins to suffocate the person it was meant to protect. The question isn't whether the mask is bad, it's whether it still serves you. For now, breathe once, without performing calm. Let the breath arrive as it is. Underneath all appearances, the nervous system doesn't lie. It knows when you're pretending. It knows when you're finally ready to feel. Strength has always been admired. But what happens when strength stops being strength and becomes a costume? When composure no longer protects, but conceals? Many men learn early that tenderness is dangerous. Maybe a father mocked their tears, or a teacher praised endurance over honesty. Maybe love came with a price. Be pleasant, be silent, be strong. Vulnerability was filed under risk. That belief never quite leaves. It simply grows sophisticated. By adulthood, it looks like discipline, competence, self-control. But underneath, the nervous system is staging a quiet mutiny. Dr. Stephen Porges' polyvagal theory describes this state well. The body learns to appear regulated even while flooded internally. It's adaptive dissociation, an elegant disguise created by a frightened organism. What looks like calm is often the freeze response in a tailored suit. It's the man who delivers flawless presentations while his chest burns. The friend who laughs at dinner but forgets what was said because his mind is stuck replaying an argument from 3 nights ago. The lover who offers steady comfort yet feels hollow the moment the room empties. Each one is performing safety their body no longer feels. There was a post once from a Reddit thread titled "Functioning Depression." A man described how he never missed a deadline, never broke down in public. "People call me reliable," he wrote, "but I can't remember the last time I felt alive." His nervous system had become fluent in imitation, emotional fluency without access to emotion itself. That's the paradox of adaptive strength. It earns respect, but erodes connection. Dr. Gabor Mate would call this a brilliant adaptation turned chronic prison. These are not broken people. They are efficient survivors. They learned to mute distress because expression once threatened belonging. The body recorded that safety depends on suppression, and so it plays that note, over and over, until it forgets other melodies exist. Jung would add another layer. The persona, he said, is a necessary mask, the social face we wear to function in the world. But when the persona takes over, the shadow begins to leak. Microsignals, a jaw that never unclenches, laughter that feels rehearsed, empathy that flickers when fatigue sets in. Others may not name it, but they sense it, the faint dissonance between words and presence. The body cannot fake safety forever. It whispers truth through symptoms. Sometimes the first symptom is exhaustion that sleep doesn't fix. Sometimes it's irritability disguised as ambition. Sometimes it's that low-grade emptiness that makes success feel like paperwork. Each one is the nervous system's way of saying, I can't keep pretending. If you recognize yourself in that mirror, know this isn't failure. It's feedback. The body is intelligent. It resists lies, even well-intentioned ones. The same system that helped you survive repression also holds the map to release. Strength was never the enemy, but strength without softness becomes armor fused to the skin. In a moment, we'll trace how that armor doesn't just protect, it rewards itself. Because pretending to be fine doesn't only hide pain, it also activates a powerful, addictive loop in the brain, one that makes the mask feel good. That's the next trap, and the next turning point. There is a peculiar pleasure in appearing composed. It is subtle, quiet, and persistent. When others believe you are fine, a certain part of you feels intact. Identity, fractured by early fears, reassembles itself in the gaze of approval. The mind interprets social coherence as safety. The body interprets it as reward. Neuroscience helps us understand this. The dopamine-oxytocin loop activates when your calmness is recognized, even if your inner world is turbulent. A compliment, a nod, a casual remark. These are small doses of chemical reinforcement, quietly teaching the system that stability, even if feigned, is satisfying. Over time, this loop can become addictive. Pretending to be fine begins to feel safer than feeling itself. It is the emotional equivalent of a drug, subtle, socially sanctioned, and difficult to resist. Culturally, we see echoes of this everywhere. The samurai myth, the stoic hero, the man praised for composure in adversity, all point to the same pattern. Silence, controlled demeanor, the refusal to burden others. These are admired traits, and admired traits are rewarded. We carry the cultural memory that honor and survival come from restraint. Even as the body screams, the brain rewards compliance. The paradox is sharp. The very performance that keeps others comfortable also isolates you from your own experience. You are competent, reliable, strong, but you are not fully present to yourself. The mask is socially effective, but internally binding. And yet, this is not a failing. It is a sophisticated survival strategy. Some men eventually notice the strain, a sense of hollowness, a recurring anxiety, the subtle fatigue that sleep does not ease. The reward circuit has not failed. It has merely become misaligned with authentic need. The nervous system has learned to seek approval rather than truth. In this space, the question arises: what would happen if the reward circuit were offered something more than imitation? If the system could find satisfaction in honest presence instead of only social coherence? Later, we will see the moment when this loop is disrupted, not by force, but by recognition, by noticing, by the courage to let the mask crack. Until then, consider the quiet intelligence of the body. It remembers every tension, every contraction, every withheld sigh. The system rewards what is safe, yes, but it also signals when it has been overtaxed. Pretending is not the problem. The problem is when pretending becomes the only path to reward. And that path, however well trodden, is never sustainable. Next, we turn inward. We will trace the war that quietly rages between the persona, the mask, and the self, the part that longs to be known, to be held, to be real. Inside every man who wears a mask, there is a quiet conflict. One part, the hero, refuses to admit defeat. It is proud, competent, and disciplined. It wants to solve, to protect, to prove. Shadowed by this hero is the wounded child, the part that longs for care, acknowledgement, and safety. This inner tension is not failure. It is a signal that the psyche is alive, negotiating between survival and authenticity. Jung described the persona as the social mask we adopt to function in the world. It allows navigation through work, relationships, and expectation. But when the persona inflates, it can dominate, leaving the self unseen. This is the moment when repression is mistaken for strength. Anxiety, insomnia, moral fatigue, these are not weakness, but interest accruing on identity debt. Every small denial of self grows into a weight the body and mind eventually carry. Consider the myth of Achilles hiding among the maidens. The hero refuses to acknowledge vulnerability, fearing exposure and shame. Yet this denial, as dramatic as it seems, is ordinary in its pattern. We hide our wounds, perform competence, and hope that being seen as strong will protect us from the loneliness, the criticism, the uncertainty that once threatened our survival. The mask can work for decades, but it leaves a residue. Micro-tremors in posture, unspoken tension in speech, subtle avoidance in gaze. These are leaks where the self quietly asserts itself. Awareness of these cracks is the first step toward reconciliation, not collapse. The moment the mask fractures is often misread as failure, but it is initiation. The self begins to reclaim presence in the body, the mind, and the relationships it inhabits. This war between persona and self is not a battle to win, but a dialogue to enter. The hero learns that strength does not require isolation. The wounded child learns that care is not shameful. Individuation, the process of integrating all parts of the psyche, is less about eliminating the mask than about aligning it with truth. The system that once rewarded pretending now faces a new path, one where signals from the body, emotions, and inner reflection can guide choice instead of compulsion. The journey is subtle, patient, and profoundly human. In the next chapter, we trace another mechanism that holds this mask in place: shame. It quietly hijacks emotional truth and teaches the self to disappear, often in service of love or belonging. Here, the stakes become both intimate and systemic. Shame is subtle. It doesn't always arrive with a shout. Often it slips in with a glance, a sigh, a silence that teaches you to shrink. Many men carry a mother wound, love conditional on composure rather than authenticity. Early experiences embed the belief that expressing need, pain, or desire makes one less acceptable, less worthy. The nervous system learns quickly. If vulnerability triggers withdrawal or disappointment, the safest choice is invisibility. Neuroscience illuminates how this works. The amygdala, hyperactivated under perceived judgment, signals threat even when there is none. Empathy circuits diminish. The body prepares for damage that may never come. Over time, emotional truth becomes a liability. The system rewards restraint, punishes openness, and the mask of being fine becomes reinforced by fear, not by choice. There is a counterintuitive pattern. Chronic helpers, men who dedicate themselves to others, often hide their inner collapse. By prioritizing the burden of care for others, they erase their own emotional reality. The savior complex emerges not from arrogance, but from a learned imperative to suppress, to perform, to prove stability. Compassion becomes armor. Service becomes camouflage. Across cultures, this pattern repeats. In collectivist societies, emotional invisibility can be mistaken for virtue. The man who suffers silently is honored, while the one who speaks for himself risks censure. The body internalizes this lesson, storing tension, tightness, and suppressed grief. Over time, the somatic record of silence becomes louder than the words we withhold. The leakage is inevitable. Muscle aches, insomnia, subtle anxiety, restless attention. These are not random. They are the body insisting on honesty. When the mask fails, it is not a moral failing. It is a signal that the system has reached its limit. The psyche, once compliant, now demands recognition of its truth. Even in the smallest way, this invites reflection. A tension in the jaw, a shallow breath, a hollow smile. They are not flaws, but invitations. Each micro-signal is the body whispering, insisting that the story buried beneath the mask be acknowledged. It is here, in this quiet insistence, that the path toward reconciliation between the persona and the self begins. Next, we will arrive at the inflection point, the moment when the system, long restrained, can no longer maintain the performance. It is here that breakdown transforms into possibility. It is here that the mask finally meets the body it has hidden from. There comes a moment when the body can no longer sustain performance. The system that once rewarded composure begins to revolt. Burnout, somatic collapse, emotional numbness. These are not signs of weakness. They are signals that the nervous system has reached its limit, that the persona's currency of control can no longer purchase safety. This moment, though frightening, contains paradoxical possibility. Neuroscience shows that crises activate neuroplasticity. The brain and body become more malleable, more capable of rewiring patterns that once felt immutable. Dr. Andrew Huberman describes this window as a rare opportunity. The system is vulnerable, yes, but also receptive to new forms of regulation and alignment. A man may feel this as panic. His chest tightens, breath catches, thoughts spiral. He may mistake it for failure. Yet what he experiences is a body demanding acknowledgement, a psyche asserting presence, a self reclaiming its own authority. The first panic attack, the collapse in the office, the sleepless nights, they are all invitations to attend to the truth beneath the mask. Even in this state, awareness matters. One might notice a habitual signal, tension in the shoulders, shallow breathing, a clenched jaw. Observation alone, without judgment or correction, becomes a practice of connection with self. The body remembers what has been suppressed. It communicates in sensation, subtle but insistent. Naming it, noticing it, tracking it. These are acts of listening that lay the groundwork for healing. The moment the mask ceases to function is not an ending. It is a threshold. When performance drops away, the self can step forward. The collapse becomes a bridge, not a chasm. The nervous system, once coerced into silence, begins to speak. And the first act of honesty, the recognition of bodily truth, is also the first act of recovery. Next, we will arrive at the final chapter, where the mask, the persona, and the hidden self find reconciliation, where breath returns not as performance, but as presence, where pretending ends and life, in its quiet intensity, can finally be met. Breathing freely after holding your breath too long is not weakness, it is reunion. The gasp is not a failure of strength, it is recognition that life has returned. Pretending to be fine was once a survival code, a necessary armor in a world that demanded composure. It is not a moral flaw nor a sign of inadequacy. It was the strategy that allowed survival, and now it can be released without shame. Collapse in this sense is not the opposite of strength. It is the nervous system's confession of truth. The breakdown, the panic, the fatigue, they are all forms of honesty that the body insists upon when performance is no longer sustainable. To meet these moments with awareness is not surrender. It is initiation into a fuller, more present way of living. There is permission here, quiet and unassuming. Peace begins where performance ends. When the mask softens, the self can emerge. Strength and vulnerability, control and surrender, discipline and presence. They are no longer opposites, but elements of a unified whole. If this reflection resonates, one small acknowledgement is enough. A single line, a gesture, a moment of recognition. These traces remind us that we are not alone in surfacing, that others are also learning to allow the mask to breathe, that life, with all its depth and intensity, can be met without pretense. Peace is not boring. It is your nervous system remembering safety. Strength is not denial. It is the courage to feel and be present. And the mask, once worn so long, can finally rest.